Hi, everyone. So excited to be here again today. If it's Saturday, it must be Leslie and Catherine Day. So blessed and honored to have Leslie Flowers and Catherine Chadwick with us again. You know, it's really nice because we always have a foundation and a base to work from, which was typically last week and anything that transpired during the week. For all those out there, this is the Hour of Empower live stream. The word of the day is discipline. You know, Leslie came up with that one too, so she gets the blame or the benefit of how the show goes. So, with that said, chat's wide open, and we depend on chat to help us direct our thoughts and conversation so we can bring some relevant takeaways to you for your time, effort, and thought today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Leslie, who got here in the nick of time, and she can tell us what's new in Leslie's life and what's her first go around with discipline.
Oh boy. I feel like I've just run around the house. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Good early morning. Discipline. Hi, Elizabeth. Discipline is the ability to give oneself an order and to follow through, even when you don't want to.
Give yourself an order and follow through.
Say you're going to do something, and then even if you don't feel like it, you still do it because it's taking you towards something you want. So for me, that would be discipline, being my word, carrying out the task that I said. That's an experience of discipline, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great example of discipline. I just think of it sometimes as a system or a process that you continue to use, right? So, you know, you have a discipline of exercise, let's say. So you got a routine, 3 days a week, you're going to do whatever, and that's your discipline. Now, whether you adhere to it is, you know, in other words, here's what you believe in, here's what your values are, here's what your intent is, here's what your plan is. It's all perfectly laid out. But you also have life that comes into focus, and you have how you feel that day, right? But I think without discipline, it's very difficult to have any plan or any intent or purpose, right? So, Catherine, wow, these things just came in fast and furious. So let's get Catherine in before we get the audience in, and we're on our way.
Well, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Absolutely. You know, what's fascinating is that I think discipline is an essential key to keep moving us forward, you know, with being intentional, to support the decisions that we have made in regard to what it is that we want to accomplish and who do we want to be, right? The flip side of that is rigidity. And that oftentimes will hold you up because then you're not open to new information coming your way. So, you know, the balance is always fluctuating. And you know, and I love your example about, you know, the exercise, because that applies to so many arenas in life, you know, because we have to take care of ourselves. And it's so easy to say, well, okay, I'll get to that later. And when we keep pushing ourselves aside, that's not being disciplined, and that's not honoring who we really are and what we're made of.
Perfect point, because honesty with yourself has to come into play. Right? You can't have all these disciplines and not do any of them and still think you have disciplines. Right. So you have to figure, you know, because that's what happens January 1st. Everybody gets disciplined, right? This is the year, this is the day I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go to Weight Watchers. I'm going to, you know, join a club. I'm going to, everything I need to do, want to do, I'm going to start doing. And then all of a sudden, old ways start pulling you back, right? Everybody can do anything if they work hard enough and do the best they can at it over time. And the discipline is over time. You can have an exercise program for a day and you're following your discipline, but if that's where it ends without time frame to making that commitment, knowing that it's flexible, if it turns out to be not the right road, you're able to get off of that. But I think that's really the key, is self accountability. Why do I join these clubs, go to it for a week and never show up again? Or why do I think I need these and I never use them? But before we get too far, let's go. Here's must be Carrie. Gotta have a picture, Carrie. The comedian went into Lowe's to get fertilized. When asked what it was, he said, "So I can have homegrown puns." Okay. I don't know, Carrie. It's early in the morning. Jokes only get better. Hello, Catherine, Dr. Leslie, and Grandpa Don. It's such a formal introduction. Thank you, Paul. Grateful to be here to support and learn. This is my word for 2023. Well, I'll say one thing about Paul is he does have discipline. He's on 3 shows a week, at least, that I've seen. He's on everybody else's show. He's always participating. I mean, that takes something every day to continue to strive to do better, learn more, be with people who can help you. Am Bambola's here, who is just amazing. I see her post and all the different groups she's in and speaking opportunities. So it was so great to have Am Bambola at the beginning of this hour of Empower. And everybody has contributed something to getting us where we are and hopefully where we're going to be. My favorite definition for discipline is aggressive patience. Well, that's a good point. Patience goes a long way.
Aggressive. Is that even possible?
You can jump on that one, Leslie.
Well, I don't know. Is that even possible? Aggressive patience. Is that what they call an oxymoron?
I think so.
Because patience is the antithesis of being aggressive.
Well, patience is holding off, waiting, being happy in the time it's going to take, right? If you put some in the oven and it's an hour, you're going to have patience because that's what it's going to take, right?
But that's not aggressive.
No, that's my point. The opposite of patience.
That was my point.
Yeah. Aggressive is the type of opposite.
I mean, Don, you said, Leslie, you can take that one. I took it, and then you repeated exactly the same thing.
But it's okay.
Yeah, it's perfect. I actually have something I wanted to talk about before I forget it.
I was just pointing out that aggressive and patience are complete opposites. I
had just said.
Yeah, impatience would be the opposite of patience. And you could get aggressive in your impatience, right? But it's really being impatient that is opposite of patience. So, Leslie,
if I remember what it was, it had to do with what you were saying, Don, about people. Oh, I know. So in the gym in January, you're tapping your foot at the desk waiting for a machine, right? You could be somewhere else. In February, there are machines and there are people next to you to have lovely conversations with. In March, you're all by yourself, and here's why. This ability to be disciplined is cybernetic. It works. It's a cybernetic system. It works like your thermostat. And so 1 or 2 months is not enough to instill the discipline required. Further, if you're not deeply in love with the exercise regime, why are you there? Do you really want to? Did someone tell you? Are you compelled? Right? Then it's very easy to give up. So it's like autopilot, right? It's like the kid who is a C student all his life. And when he gets to 9th grade, his parents go, holy mackerel, we better incentivize him. He's, and he's a great kid. Everybody likes him. Nothing wrong with this kid, but he's a C student. He's always known himself as that. and nobody said anything. And all of a sudden his parents say, oh my God, he's got to go to college. And so they incentivize him and they talk it up, right? It's so important, etc. And he does start out good. But just like with autopilot, it's not enough to be a new pattern, right? A secure habit of discipline. So that's what I want to say.
Well, here's what I have to add to that. And I
Oh,
wanna-
please do.
Well, it's so important. It has to be said. What I look at patience is the difference between your expectation going in and the reality, right? So if you say, I want to go to the gym and I want to lose 10 pounds in 3 days, you're not going to have patience after the 3 days if nothing happened, right? So the idea to having patience is seeing what you're hoping for starting to happen, right? Once you get a win, right? Once someone says, oh man, you've been going to the gym, you look great. All of a sudden it's like, hey, that's reinforcing. You know, you get on the scale, you lost a couple pounds. Hey, it works.
But you have to keep it up.
Oh,
Otherwise,
absolutely.
it doesn't
But if you don't
stick.
get positive feedback from the activity or from the people around you or support, all of a sudden your excitement starts to dwindle because you know what you realize, it is longer term. I've got to do this for like 3 months or 6 months.
And
That's
you
why-
really didn't want to very much to begin with. You did it because the doctor said you did it, because of what other people said you did it, because of your own lack of confidence, if you will, or self-belief. Nothing's wrong. But if you don't have a definite purpose and you aren't compelled to follow it through for at least 3 or 4 months, find something else to do.
That's true. And there's also a degree of something, right? You could start small. You don't have to dive right in. What?
Catherine, we need to let her talk.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Catherine, you got to talk.
Well, I was just making a note, right? And so
We know each other very well.
Well, for sure. That's why we're talking.
yeah. And so with what came to mind as you folks were talking is that I think sometimes people have a bad taste in their mouth associated with the word discipline because they have been disciplined.
So true. Like punishment, huh?
Right.
Spanked. Yes.
Right. And it's just like, oh, I don't want to be disciplined, because that didn't feel very good. And so it's unfortunate that those two words, has really such different, meanings to them, because discipline can actually be very freeing if you use it intentionally to support your decisions and moving forward in what you want. And that's a key thing, is what you said, Leslie, about, are you really in love with what you're doing?
Would persistence be better, Catherine? So because I see them really a lot alike, and you are so right. The word, that's a trigger for some people. I was spanked with a belt. So yeah, that was discipline.
Yeah,
right?
it didn't feel good a bit.
No, so why would I even want to do that? So, but persistence and discipline really map to each other, right? The persistence, the will to continue moving one foot in front of the other, even when you didn't really want to that day, but you did it because you wanted to have the outcome more than sleeping in that day. Right. So yeah, that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and I think to both of your thoughts, discipline is something you bring in when you know you need it. Something happens and you say, I can't let that happen again. I got to be more disciplined. It could be the way you talk with people, the way you do anything, and anything to get you in trouble is something you tend to want to think, how do I get a discipline? Only drink one drink, right? What's the saying? One's too many, two's never enough, or something in a lot of situations. So, once you have a hard time controlling things, at least you have to reinforce to yourself, hey, let's slow down. And maybe you don't totally slow down, but you do enough to say, I don't need that extra whatever it is or whoever it is. I just have to watch myself is what it's saying. So, discipline again is kind of a verb also, right? It's an action step, whether it's punishing someone through discipline, whether it's really setting boundaries for yourself is what discipline is,
Mhm.
right? I'm going to walk a mile and that's what I'm going to do. But it might take me a week to get to a mile is what you have to say, I mean, so why would you ever put yourself in a position where say, to Leslie's point, I don't care for this anymore. I thought I loved it. It's not fun. I'm tired of losing sleep. You got 100 reasons where, and there's
Just pick something else.
well, yeah, or take it slow with this. Get to know it, learn a little bit.
I don't know. I think
No, I'm not saying you should raise your desire level to do things, but if you really love something
Mhm.
and it's your passion, then sometimes you're better off walking into it a little slower so it's not too overwhelming or it's
You're
not.
very cautious, Don. Have you
No,
noticed
I'm a
that?
gambler, but here's what the key is.
Cautious.
Is what's
You have
well,
trials and things like that. I love
love
it.
that
Love it.
because if measure twice, cut once. That's
I
all,
hear you. I hear you. I hear
right?
you. Yeah.
And it's better to put your toe in the water before you jump in because you can't unjump. And ultimately, whatever you do for discipline, what's easy to do is easy not to do, right? And it goes both ways. Here's the thing: we've got comments.
Okay.
So Elizabeth is here. I prefer the screen when you all have your own space for sure. I mean, we have options on StreamYard. Discipline, Ambambola says, helps us to stay on track and stay focused on achieving our set goals. The other thing, Ambambola, once you get into the discipline and it does take hold and it does work, it's easy to maintain, right? Because it's routine now. It's like not a big deal. It's second nature. 400 of these shows, there's no shyness or
It's a habit. It's now
Yeah.
you made it a habit.
Well, you get good at it
Yeah.
after a while. And so not only is it a habit, it's a sense of pride. How many people love before and after pictures? I went on this diet, I lost this. I went on this exercise program because people want to see the triumph, not the tragedy. And if you can do it somewhere, you can do it in other places in your life because then you bring discipline to maybe your relationships, maybe discipline to your financial situation. Everybody has a little bit out of control. Liv's like, okay, we talked about that. Paul's got a lot of emojis. Ambambola says, I missed you three. You make me laugh. Yeah, we are kind of three people from comedy. I won't say any
We're
names.
brothers and sisters, is what it is.
Yeah, my suggestion to anyone who wants to learn discipline is to practice the scrolls. Cool. Dennis is here, a rhymer. Agree. Accelerate your patience peacefully. Works. Yeah, I mean, patience is a virtue. It's, I love taking my time. I love taking a moment off. I love slowing things down, and that helps patience. How many people are rushing to get somewhere and they got nowhere to go after that? Right? So where's the fire? Right? You got to get to the grocery store in 10 minutes. You're coming right home. So go in 30 minutes, which is not to be a procrastinator. It's just to say, don't rush yourself. Don't rush the people around you when there's no real rush. Dennis says, but if we learn from our discipline, well spelled, we feel and spell better. Oh, I didn't catch the second half.
Can we go back to Paul's question for the panel,
Walk a
please?
mile, enjoy your smile. Paul says, my suggestion to anyone who wants to learn discipline. No.
The next one.
Okay, the next one was just emoji. So let's go.
No, he has one that's asking us a question. I'm curious for the panel. Do you believe that how you do, there we go, and that how you do anything is how you do everything? Catherine.
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because we often, without really being aware of it, we're running so much often on the subconscious, right? And old programming that how and what that programming is, say, in regard to, say, your nutritional, intake. And because this is the way grandma cooked, and this is the way mama cooked, and this is what my diet is now. And it could be horrible for you, but that's what you're doing, and it tastes good, and and that's what you're doing. However, in another area of your life, the programming was different. It's actually at a different energy level. And so that's why I think it's important to be disciplined in your own self-evaluation. And and what energetic level am I coming from in these different arenas? Because we may be very persistent in one area, and the other one we're not even really paying attention to, but it's actually quite destructive because we're not paying attention to it, right? And so I think it's important to it all comes back very much, I believe, to self-care. And that living from the inside out. What is my purpose? What am I doing to move myself forward? Because how can I contribute if I'm scattered all over the place and not taking good care of myself? So I like to think of discipline as more as persistence, as you and I were talking to earlier, Leslie. But understand that discipline can be a real plus when we understand it in the vein that I think that we can use it to our best advantage.
Those are excellent points.
Excellent.
And just to add a little bit to that, your past experience with discipline has a lot to do with your future experience with discipline. So if you say, it took me 4 months, I got my degree. It took me 3 months, I accomplished this. In other words, whatever you can look back on and say, hey, it was a long time, took a lot of work, but I got there, right? And because I stuck with it, because I didn't give up. And the key is, what are you giving up to? What is tomorrow's new deal going to be any different than today's new deal? Because people want instant. They want to add water, and all of a sudden it comes to fruition. If you want something to work, you got to work it, and it's got to work you. And that's, again, where we come around to getting a coach, getting a person who can help you with that discipline. Right? If you go to the gym by yourself, you're by yourself. You're touching things and moving around things and machines. If you have an actual quality trainer who will tell you, here's what we can do together, and here's the plan. No different with a coach or a educator. Here's what I do with people in that situation, and here's the process. Here's the expectation and the cost and the time. And then you're far more informed before you say, oh, I'm going to the gym and everything great's going to happen just because I show up. And it's really the discipline to be sincere with yourself. If you love doing something that isn't something that's conventional or people approve of, it still doesn't mean you should have discipline with it. Right? Maybe until it doesn't become your love and passion, it's balance. It's the key to say, hey, you can go as far as you want, but you still got to eat. You still got to sleep. You still got to get out and do stuff, and I think that's where discipline can go too far when people are compulsive or obsessed with something. And again, it's balance. So Leslie, your turn.
The greatest things, the greatest inventions were not balanced. They were obsessed. Literally. I mean, look, Edison, 10,000 tries for the light bulb. Obsessed. These guys in computers, the guy with the Teslas, right? The handsome blonde-haired old man over in England. I can't think of his name. Who's
Richard Branson.
Yeah, real sex pot at 80 or 85, right? But anyway, right? I mean, these people are obsessed. People who do great things, they don't know how, and they are obsessed. Now, that isn't necessarily healthy.
Well,
right, that to your point. However, if you're that compelled, you don't care about the health. It's not unlike doctors who would go to Africa during the Ebola, and this is a very superficial explanation, right? People say, well, why aren't they all getting sick and dying? Really? I mean, they're right in there with the people that have this contagious, terrible disease because they are heart-centered and they're focused. They're not afraid. They're in service. And that vibration protects them. If they are afraid, they don't belong there. And that's why. So we really have more control with how we think about things. If you're heart-centered, they're obsessed. You'd have to be to go over to Africa and help with Ebola. You'd have to be some kind of a nutcase, in my view, because there isn't the balance, right, at all. And that's why there's R&R for our military. It's what is it, 6 weeks after a year or 6 months? It's not enough, but it's that balance that, Dawn, that you're pointing to. I guess the scary thing to me is, but it's scary, but it's also magical. You know, when you're in love with something, it's not hard work. When was the last time you spent 12 hours working on something and never ate, barely got up to go to the bathroom, and the time disappeared and the sun went down?
Yep.
That is obsession, and I love it.
Yeah, and here's another element. Most of these people you talked about, their obsession was in their thinking and their vision. Right? If you look at Edison, he did 10,000 experiments, but while he was doing that, he had hundreds of inventions he was inventing. You look at Branson, he's got an island here, he's got 30 different Virgin companies. I mean, he's all over the place. In his thought, he's aggressive, but he has plenty of time for different pursuits and interests. And I think that's where you have to do is have your mind disciplined.
Absolutely. 100%.
You're disciplined in your mind.
It's what you think. It all boils down to what you're thinking, how often you're thinking it, and how it makes you feel when you're thinking it.
Yeah, and that's the flip side. Most people get obsessed with the activity and burn themselves up, right? When you're obsessed in the thinking, you know, the beauty of even what this is and what I'm trying to do is it's a puzzle. And every day you get to go back to that puzzle when you're fresh again, right? Because if you ever did a jigsaw puzzle, at a certain point, you can't see anymore. Right. It just looks like there's no, and the next day you find 6 pieces that pop right in. So the key is if you can't wait for tomorrow to turn that next page of mystery in your mind, that you're working on a puzzle that no one else even can work on because it's your puzzle for one thing. And it's your situation in life at that point. That's what keeps you going for longevity, right? I got to stick around to figure this out. Or, hey, I got so much done. Now it's starting to fill itself in. I can't wait to watch it. And that's the energy then you take to action because of confidence. When you know that puzzle inside and out and you've done it 100 times, about it so many ways that someone who never tried it can't, right? And that comes from discipline. So back to Catherine. Never give Catherine enough time, right, Leslie?
Speak for yourself, John.
Well, you know, you learn an awful lot by listening. And so right?
Good lesson, Catherine.
That's not a discipline we have.
Yeah, but you know what's so great as you were talking, return on investment came to mind, right? And that applies to pretty much every arena in our life. Okay, so you know, what's the return I'm getting from investing in this particular activity, this particular thought process? And I just encourage everybody all the time to really think of things on an energetic level, right? Because am I investing on an energy level that's serving? Sometimes not, right?
Right.
You know, that negative loop that has a tendency to take off sometimes. It's just like, that's not a good investment. But there are a lot of people that seem to think that they're very disciplined in that endeavor, right? And so that's, you know, that's not a good form of discipline, right? And so what's the return I'm getting on all of this energy that I'm expending in these different arenas of my life? And let's go
Mhm.
from there. Because when we are working on things that we're excited about and we're in love with, and then that just propels us forward, and that's where the possibilities are opening up and the opportunities lie in these upper vibrational levels.
Mhm.
And going along with that, what's fascinating is you were talking about longevity. These higher vibrations really invite us, to more of the self-love and the better taking care of ourselves, even though we might be working 15 hours a day, because it just fuels us on
Mhm.
that level, right? And when we're at that level, we have, some people are better at taking care of themselves nutritionally and sleep wise and whatnot. But what's fascinating too, the tolerance is also a mindset,
Mhm.
right? And so all of that comes into play. And so, gosh, vibration is just fascinating. And the other thing that is so exciting to be a part of and studying and learning more about is the research on the heart brain coherence, right?
Mhm.
And so I did a post yesterday, a little excerpt from part of Greg Braden's blog, in regard to heart brain coherence. And he says it's fascinating, no matter how you look at it, where you're coming from, and how tall you are, how much you weigh, what color you are, where you live in the world, the distance between your heart and brain is on average about 18 inches.
Wow. Well, I think what you say is true, and I think what Leslie has kind of shared is, what are you living for? Who are you living for?
Mhm.
Right? If you have people in your life that you just can't wait to see, right?
Mhm.
And they can't wait to see you, and you're creating memories for the future of them, that will be your legacy. Shows like this, my 11-year-old is watching every day.
Mhm.
In 20 years, maybe he'll understand them better, or appreciate. But here's the key: is and it's been proven, people who have been told that you got 90 days, if they got a daughter being married in 6 months, they get to 6 months somehow, right?
Absolutely.
So once you have that, hey, I don't care what people say, I don't care what I'm hearing,
Thank you. Yeah.
right? This is going to happen, because everything else will surrender to it.
Well, Donald, what was it yesterday? Oh, I had such a mess with Restream. I'm so angry. But anyway, I'm gonna probably move over to. Um,
Graveyard.
uh, oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. It'll
Okay.
come back. It'll come back to me.
Oh, it will. And what's interesting too is what you were talking about, Don. I was talking to a gal I've been working with for a while, and she's had some surgery, and won't go into all the particulars. But I said, I don't know what you've been told in regard to percentages and prognosis and
Mhm.
outlooks. That is all based on energy that we're not even a part of, right? Because it's old Western, statistics, and there's not a lot of heart centering going on in most of those statistics that people are still talking about. And when you move yourself to a whole different energy, you pretty much are writing your own ticket, because if you can visualize it, it's already done. And repetition, 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 and not being swayed. And talk about discipline. If you can discipline yourself for the repetition that moves you in the direction you want to go, and allow that vibration to rise and allow it to come to you. People have also, I think, sometimes a negative connotation to the word surrender. And it's
Mhm.
right. But when it's an allowance, right? If you can really surrender to your circumstance and what we're made of, and the universal energy that we're all a part of, that's the opposite of being in resistance.
Well, surrender is a choice.
Oh, absolutely, because you want to be a part of it, right? Yeah, yeah, and it's a whole different ball game.
Well, it's a comfort level too, because how many times do you pick up too much and it's too heavy? So what do? You drop something, right? You put, you got 3 suitcases, well, you make 2 trips versus carrying too much. So there's a point where you just say, hey, I'm not comfortable with all this. And, with that firm belief that, hey, that's not going to happen. And I believe that's not going to happen, because once you believe it, starts to manifest. If a doctor says you've got 60 days, your mind is saying, I only got 60 days. Now I got to figure, what am I going to do in 60 days? And you've just integrated that into your life.
Mhm.
And the key is you're right, Catherine, because if 4% survive, that's still 1 out of 25. Who knows who that one is?
Mhm.
And I went to this presentation, this ex-Vietnam vet who lost his legs in Vietnam and got blown off on a mine, and he was in Bethesda Naval Hospital. And he said everybody who gave in to their situation didn't make it.
Right.
And those who decided, I'm going to use this to give me purpose and give me a new beginning, did. So you've got to be the first one to write yourself a prescription,
Right.
right? For self-care, for de-stressing. You got to go through your closet and say, hey, I used to be able to handle this load. Now I got a different load.
Mhm.
I got to be able to take care of me. And that comes first. And I think once you put yourself first when you're in a challenging situation, because most people try to be as good as they can for as many people as they can, and they're really nothing to anybody at a certain point. People like genuine, they like authentic, they like people say, today I'm making the move, and I'm laying down the law, I'm having some discipline, I'm going to get more sleep, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to have more fun. I mean, all those things. But you know what? Why do you need a 60-day sentence for that to happen? Right? Why can't that happen right now? Saying, what can I do for myself today that I really like or enjoy, but I never give myself that time or that opportunity,
Well, what came to mind as you were talking about that is so many people, I believe, have been chastised for, when they say about being disciplined, about taking care of themselves, that they're being selfish, from a different perspective, right? Because you're not doing it their way. Right. But I think it's important to be selfish, from the perspective of, okay, I have requirements.
Well, it's funny, selfish, because if you break it down, you could look at it like self-ish, right? Instead of
sort of about myself.
Well, selfish is it is about me, and then who says I'm selfish?
Right.
Right? And why am I selfish? Because I take now more time today for myself, because I decide to do something no one's doing for me, that only I can do. If I want to go somewhere and nobody else wants to go, when do I go anyways?
Mm-hmm.
And and a lot of times, because fortunately I've always been my own person. I only had my own businesses, always had majority control, never had to worry about a lot of things. But it was really about being able to say, that's never going to happen. People come to my office and they bring up stuff. It's not going to happen. Forget about it. Right? Could have been a sales rep. It could have been somebody else. But you got to be able to say no faster if it's going to be no. Too many people wade in it. They don't want to say no, but they don't want to do it. And what a waste of everybody's time. And you don't have to be direct or mean. You can just say, it doesn't fit my agenda right now, and it's not a judgment. Anytime I had to let someone go, I would always say, that's not a good fit, right? I wouldn't say you're this and you should have done this. It just doesn't fit well, probably for all those reasons. But no one wants to come home and tell their wife or their husband, hey, they fired me and they told me I was this, and this. Now I'm out of work. My confidence is gone. I mean, you got to look at where are you putting that person to the next person, right? Just because you said no doesn't mean the next person won't say yes if they ask them, right? I'm busy. Ask Mary or Jim. Leslie.
I've remembered what it was. It was, we were talking about vibration, and yesterday was desire. And there's this amazing story. Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich over a 20-year period, #2 bestseller of all times. All the principles of success for 5,000 years collapsed into one volume, right? So talk about discipline, persistence, desire, purpose. His son was born with no ears
Right.
and no openings.
Yeah.
Right. And he was obsessed with believing and having faith that he would do everything and anything that his son would not be deaf and dumb, which is what the doctors prescribed.
Mm-hmm.
He was relentless. And one day, they turned on the Victrola, and it's an old-fashioned record player. And he saw his son, and this proved, right, for every idea there is a solution. They saw their son with his teeth clenched on the wooden box with the vibration. And so at that point, he realized that it absolutely is possible. Now, it was his discipline telling his son that this handicap will be his greatest achievement, which, by the way, it did turn out to be. So he fed repetitively the faith and belief that his son would speak and hear. And then there was years later, this took 20 years to get this right. So that's how long. It took him 20 years to write the book. It took him 20 years for his son to completely hear. There was a bad surgery that didn't do anything. There was an iteration of a hearing aid down the road, right? And finally, a company sent him an external pair, but he had had such negative feelings about the surgery and the difference. I mean, but he could hear some. Mm-hmm. Finally, he tried them on and they worked. So if you don't think that the energy and the vibration that you hold in every cell of your body as an energetic being, when you are compelled to do good, that it won't happen, I've got news for you. We are really godlike.
Yeah.
We really, really can take an idea and turn it into physical form. We can do these things, but we have to be disciplined and persistent.
Well, that's exactly right. And when you realize how many people have told people that's not possible, that can't be done, right? Going back to the world is flat and you'll fall off it.
Oh, we're going to build a flying machine.
I mean, you name it.
Craziest one of all.
I mean, look at Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah.
He came up with helicopters and all kinds of things 800 years ago.
Visualization. He visualized he used his imagination. He saw them. And what happens with those pictures when you visualize, there's the vibration. I don't know how it does it, but Catherine, it sticks, right? It belongs with the image. So whenever you bring it back up, you get excited again and you raise, right? Does that?
Well, it was fascinating when you were talking about getting excited. It's really the emotion that carries much of the message, right? Much of the connection, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
so if you're thinking, oh, well, I thought about this helicopter thing and, not a big deal. But if you go, oh my gosh, a flying machine, right? and I can really, and you really,
I mean, I'm getting chills right now, right? Just listening to you, because when we share, I've found myself secretly visualizing you doing the thing you're talking about. And it seems to have strengthened the muscle of imagination for me. So I
Okay.
get
Yeah, right. Yeah, because it's just like, wow, okay. And I was talking to this gal yesterday, and gosh, she's got some health issues going on. And as we're talking, she whips out her phone and she looks and she goes, "Oh, I'm such a news junkie, and there was something that came to mind and she had to look at it right away. And it's just like, wow, okay. You're giving all your power away to all of these opinions of people that really want to control you, and really, they don't really have anything to do with your possibility of
it's
living.
not thinking.
Right.
That's an example of not thinking. When you're on automatic pilot like that, you're not thinking
No, and you're not allowing yourself to really be who you are.
and
Right.
receive ideas. You're not going to receive those good gifts because yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to comments.
Yes, please, Donald, we've been missing the comments. Could you hurry up with that?
Oh, for sure. I'm going to spend extra time. Paul says, I'm finding that self-awareness is the ultimate superpower. Everything helps everything that's moving in the right direction. One thing I want to add to the Leonardo situation is back in whenever he was, 1500, whatever, 1400, there was no science, there was no technology. It had to be vision. It had to be one day people will fly. One day there'll have boats that go under the water. And the difference is some people see farther, but they see it. And once they see it, they know it. And now it's just between them and the distance and the time and the effort. Some people look at a mountain, don't see anything
That's right.
because they have short vision. They're short-sighted.
Well, that's not the thing that lights them up. There's probably something else.
Well, that's what takes a Christopher Columbus or an explorer to say, I'm going to go where nobody's been. I don't mind a risk. I know how many people leave and never come back because it's a passion of living their life, not so much quantitatively, but qualitatively. A lot of people in those years made it to 30 if they were lucky. You cut your finger, it was over. Anyways, Paul's here. Paul says, I'm curious, do you have any subconscious hacks that can help people have had bad experience with discipline?
Change the word. Just change out the word. That's the best thing you can do if discipline triggers you. Find persistence, whatever the word is that brings your hackles up, find another word.
Well, and discipline's a tool. It's how you apply it, right? If you hammer yourself every day with it, it's going to be a less than desirable activity. If you reward yourself with it, right, by having some discipline, that helps. Dennis comes back with, agree, we need to focus on our focus with discipline. We will stay in, not out, and won't have to shout. For sure. Dennis has a couple more. We have an obsession with your presentation. Thinking and thinking helps things work for all of us. Inclusion is a big way of getting discipline, bringing people into the game. 18 inches is 1.5 feet, and we step ahead thanks to what we learned from your show. So that goes back to Catherine's 18 inches from heart to brain. We can be honest while also being kind. You can be everything at once if you put it together right. And shellfish are in hard shells, and it's hard for them to get out. Try not to be shellfish. Thanks for catching advice. I don't know where you get it this early in the morning. A little late, but I'm here. Yesley Flowers, right on target. Persistency and energy. Who would have thought we'd carry a phone, take pictures, have a computer in your pocket? When they saw the Dick Tracy watch, they thought that would never happen in a million years, right? Thank you, Beverly. Always great to have you. Tuesdays is Beverly's day. And Dennis comes back. You're getting chills, and we're getting thrills from you three. Again, thanks. Dennis, what can I say? You got to get a couple cousins and brothers to get on the show with you. We'll have a huge feedback stream. So, Leslie, you're shaking your head. Must be you want to talk.
No, I'm just laughing at Dennis because he's so funny.
Well, it makes a difference.
So we didn't really talk about our businesses in the beginning like we usually do.
Okay, so let's talk about what's coming up. This is important.
Yeah. So, and that's fine. That's fine. I mean, it's like, so you can catch me talking about the things that I love 3 times a week, Monday at 10. Donald, thank you for always sharing. That's an audio room, mind over matter. That is the times that you stood through fear for somebody else or someone else stood for you, and what was that like? And that's unique, and it takes something special. Then Tuesday afternoon, Paul hosts a show, What Are You Thinking? And we pick a different subject each week, and that's his show. Wednesday at 1 is a new one each week. Over 12 weeks, I'm going to take 30 minutes. That's it. And I'm teaching in an audio room. So it's different and it's fast. And there's no time really for any sharing unless there's confusion. It's the 12 laws of high achievement. It's the front end of my program, How You Set a Goal. And then Friday is the live stream at 10 a.m., which is covering the principles of success, the lessons in Think and Grow Rich, what you want to get out of those principles and how to apply them in 21st century business. And so that's what I do. That, and the other part of my life is I've got 4 grandkids. They're all driving now. One's in university, one's a baker, starting to be a baker. Another one is in gymnastics and voice. And my grandson, last night, they won the semifinals of his baseball team.
Oh, wow.
So, and I go to Panera and I bring everybody, when we meet at 6, I bring everybody soup and sandwiches, and everybody brings their own drink, and we picnic watching baseball during this season. So last night it was 75 degrees, and it's usually cold here. So I'm telling you, this is the life. Come and get whatever you want. I love doing it. And it's very selfish of me in a lot of ways because I love it so much.
Well, that's great. And what have you learned from all these different exposures?
What have I learned? That I'm a natural teacher, that I like, that when I was, 10, we got our first TV. I used to stand in front of the medicine cabinet for hours on end. There's a mirror on the medicine cabinet, standing on the toilet, hosting my own television show. This was in 1957. So I love being extroverted and sharing and self-expression. That's it.
Good for you. Great to hear that. Great to share that.
Thank you.
Catherine, what's new and exciting in your life and something everybody should know about?
Well, but I'll get to that in a second. But Leslie, what you were talking about, in self-expression, it's so fabulous to be sharing what you have, the culmination to this point of all your experience and all you've learned and all, and being able to share that because you offer a lot of value.
Thank you.
Right. And I think that's what it's all about. I mean, that's why I'm continuing to study, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I love working with private clients. I'm also working with, on an acute adult psych unit, and I'm learning a ton by doing that because that supports some of my projects as well. My favorite project in the world is the Sunshine Quotient. And, and that's all about energy and learning to move yourself up into the higher energies, because your level of radiance is your calling card in this life. And it's the first thing that people notice about you, right? They either are attracted to you because you're bright and it's just like, oh my gosh, what's she doing? What's she up to? What's he up to? Or, or that storm cloud that you're going, oh, I'm going to be very disciplined in my retreat from that, right? So,
That's right. That's right.
You don't want to hang around with all of that. You're not going to go anywhere with all of that, right? And so my focus is not only the Sunshine Quotient, but also Create Your Own Mind diet. And I'm running a little experiment these days. I think this is, it will be session number 4 or 5 coming up. It's the 3rd Tuesday of each month at 12 noon Eastern time. And it's, I give actionable steps and research that people can actually use. And I encourage people to bring questions because I think it's important for people to be talking about things and these types of things and have the opportunity to do that. And what's really fun is you absolutely put on your calendar. We don't have a title yet, but on the 12th day of the 12th month at 12 Eastern Standard Time. Leslie and I are going to do a workshop for an hour. It's just like, oh my gosh, how fun is this?
Oh, super.
Right. And so,
Doing that.
yeah, I think life is supposed to be fun. But I also think that it's important for when you're offering value to people that you have some experience with it, and that you really can articulate it in a way that people can actually understand it and use it, right? And so right now I'm on a master's to PhD track in integrative medicine, and I won't be a medical doctor, but as far as being a teacher, yeah, absolutely. And I think when we are sharing like this, being a teacher, whether you're in an actual teacher role or a mentor, or whether you're working with a group of people, you're still teaching, because you're always a role model. You're always an example, regardless of what you're doing. And I think that that's the fun of it, because when you're really loving what you're doing, you're influencing all of these people in a beautiful way without even realizing it, right?
Well, that's perfect. And, what I get away from the discipline we all have is we're make it happen people. We're always trying to make some happen. And we're also taking it one more step to make it happen with and for other people.
Yeah.
Right. Some people are disciplined as everything is me, myself, and I, and everything is, how do you measure that? And some people are expansive and expressive, like Leslie, that need an audience to be able to
want. Well, I guess I needed to.
What I'm saying is, without this audience, this show couldn't be what it is, because we wouldn't be getting feedback, direction, new ideas.
Thank you.
So when you're teaching, you're also learning how to teach, but you're also learning how to learn from the students, right? So if everybody's open to everything and everybody around them and being fully engaged, right? Just don't take my book, read it, and think about it. Hey, let's get into it. That's the reason why people should actually be looking around at the people they're seeing and saying, who would I like to get to know better directly with what they're doing? When do I go beyond a sample and say, I'll go over to Leslie's for a main course, right? If she's got a class or she's got a program.
You don't have to come. The thing is that this thing that we have to do it. Well, what I wanted to say is that you don't have to stay the whole time. If that's what you think when you commit, stop in any time.
Well, that goes from even having a simple 15-minute Zoom call.
Yeah.
Right? You can pick and choose how you want to expand your interaction and hopefully your collaboration. Ask the questions, sample, check in, like Leslie says, take a piece of the Monday show, visit the Friday show. When people say, oh, it's an hour, yeah, I'm going to be here an hour, doesn't mean everybody's got to be. How many people say, I came in for the last 20 minutes because I didn't want to miss it? Well, what am I going to say? If you can't make it here, it's not as good as whatever you can do, you should do. If it's something you're passionate about, that's forms of discipline. Because here's the other thing. Don't you say, well, I got Leslie in my corner, I got Catherine in my corner. I'm getting a sample to stuff, and we got plenty of stuff, doesn't cost you anything, no real commitment until you want to make one. None of us are pushy. Nobody wants to sell anybody. So the fear of what could happen, it's only good. Right? Because anytime you get a question answered, you got another question you can ask.
Yeah.
Right? Why not start getting these things out of the way, complete them and move on? But, trust yourself that after you've gotten to know Leslie and Catherine for months, being who we are, how we are in relationship to how we support others, that should build trust and confidence that no one's going to get hurt. The last thing we want to do is hurt somebody or make it worse. I mean, if I can't, and I always say, I only try to make money with and for people, not off of people, because it's too shallow and there's not enough value if you got to take something to get something instead of give something. So I think that's the mindset. Let me see. Let me got a couple more comments. Ambimbo, it takes discipline to be intentional about self-care, continuous learning, exercise, or like showing up consistently as brands, especially as those times you don't feel. You know, how many times didn't you feel like doing something when you did it? You were so happy you did,
Right.
right?
Exercise, especially, like, oh my God, I dreaded it, but then I was so proud of myself after I did it because I really didn't want to do it. But I did ultimately want to do it, like future wise. But that day, maybe it was cold, maybe I wanted to sleep in. So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Well, and over time things change because exercise used to be, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you say, I need to do it.
Mhm.
Right? There are certain things you used to do you can't do, and you got to, get more comfortable.
Right.
And some things it's just for your better interest. Agree, life is supposed to be fun. You're helping us get it done. Thanks for sharing and caring. Paul comes back with, let's be honest, these coffee chats usually turn into an hour chat. But how many times do you say you're going to stay for 5 minutes? You stay for the whole hour. I find the more I teach people, the more I learn about LinkedIn and make changes personally. Dr. Leslie says learning is the miracle grow.
Yeah.
Great.
For
Elizabeth,
humans, that's learning is our miracle grow.
thank
Absolutely.
you so much. Elizabeth says she's going to be on the show with a new gentleman, William, this Wednesday, I believe. And Dennis finishes up, agree, give what you get, and don't forget. So with that, we're pretty much at top of the hour. Catherine, last thoughts on discipline and this show specifically?
Oh, well, it's so fun because I remember when my daughter was young and I'd say, hey, Kels, let's get all your toys picked up and we'll get ready for dinner and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
And she'd flash me this great big smile and she'd say, oh, no, thanks. And I'm thinking, how come I don't know that? So it's just on a fun note that you can't say no with a smile.
Well, there is so much fun to be had too, and don't forget that.
Thanks.
Leslie?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Just
Hmm.
so be disciplined and know that it is okay to fall off the wagon in your discipline because that's part of the process. Just get back on the wagon, right? That's all you have to do. You will fall off. And when you fall off, you might meet somebody
That's right.
who is your next client.
Mhm.
So get right back on. You're going to fall off. And by law, you have to fall off. In order to have the good stuff, you got to go through some of the bad stuff. So just expect it. Expect low moments and say, okay, there's my low moment. When's the next one coming? And look up because it's on its way to you.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is universal to whatever you're thinking or talking about. So it's not just disciplined. Whatever you're into, you're going to have your highs and your lows, and then you're going to have your highs and the lows that have nothing to do with what you're into, right? It's just the way you woke up. It's just the way something made you feel.
Mhm.
But knowing it's transitory gives you hope that, hey, tomorrow's going to be a new day. Tomorrow can be different. And once you believe in hope, and once you believe that there is a better day ahead of you and you really believe it, you can persevere through the stuff you got to go through or the people you got to deal with. But once you know this isn't going to last forever,
Mhm.
this is, you go to the dentist, you can say in 30 minutes, I'm going to be out of here. Whatever happens, happens, but at least I'm going to be getting out of here and it won't be happening after that. So context makes a big difference. Really, when something comes up, you say how much, right? Dishwasher breaks, the first thing you say, how much is it going to cost? Right? And everything in life has a cost that's kind of a disappointment. And you can say how much time, how much money, how much thought do I have to put in it? And you won't change the money or what it's going to take, but you can change how you feel about it.
That's right.
Right? I mean, yeah,
It's all relative. I mean, so I have a certain price for my program. I have had people say, Leslie, is that all?
Mhm.
And then I've had people saying, that's a lot.
Mhm. Right.
So that tells me that I just need to stay right where I am because and attract the people who say, is that all?
Well, I think there's something to exclusivity in everything you do. Right? And everyone can only do so much. So there's a built-in scarcity within yourself. right? If 50 people said, I want to do it, you'd say, I don't have time for 50 people. So you're in a position where I would choose
Mhm.
who I think I could help the most, who I think I would enjoy spending time with the most. And that's the difference, is turning it around from being a chooser instead of a choosee.
Or a loser.
For that phone call, that knock on the door, that one day this is going to happen, and that may happen when it does happen. In the meantime, what are you sitting around waiting when you could be creating
Right.
and proactive? And you know, getting a no from a question is better than getting a question mark from not a reach out, right? Because at least someone tells you where they're at.
Mhm.
You know, they said, give me a yes or no, but don't put me into purgatory or maybe,
Mhm.
because I'll never know how to leave or come back. So,
Mhm.
anyways, with that said, thank you all. You can see how an hour is never enough. So you'll have to come back tomorrow. And tomorrow I'll share with you, let me see. We've got Sarah, who's always hits it out of the park, and Jackie Scully, who was just here a week ago, just an excellent teacher and so involved with so many organizations and causes. So happy to have her back. Happy to have the audience as always. Without you, there is no us. And with that said, have a wonderful Saturday. It's between 6 and 14 inches here today. So it should be a major snowstorm.
Oh my
For
God.
October. Yeah, and I've got a basketball game. My grandson's first at 1:30, so I'm hoping to get in and out before the storm shows up. But anyways, enjoy your 75 degrees, Leslie, while we're out here, and probably about 19 tonight.
Yeah.
But it'll be 80 again in a couple days. So with that, let's get going with the rest of our day. Take care. Bye for now.